Welcome to Post Status Happiness Hour Live. We are back after taking the holidays and the beginning of this year off, but we're back in full force, and we're going to be meeting people throughout the WordPress community and seeing what they're up to. And today, my guest is Rob Ruiz. Rob, hi. How are you?
Hi. How are you, Michelle?
I'm doing really well, thank you. And we're here to talk about more than just one thing. So I want to learn a little bit about you first, and then we're going to learn all about the theme that you've got, the starter theme that you built, WP Rig. And I've looked at your website, but I haven't dived into the looking at it. So I'm really excited to see a demo and a little bit of under the hood of what you can show us today, what you can do with it. So first, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you work? What do you do? Where are you located?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm Rob Ruiz. I am originally from Orlando, Florida. Been living here in Omaha, Nebraska for a long time now, a few decades. I work currently at a company called Bold Orange out of Minneapolis. But I've worked at a number of places over the years, and I've been a WordPress developer since about 2008 or 9, I think. I started using content management systems back in like 06 and started on Joomla, and then went over to WordPress around 2009, 2010, and haven't looked back since. And I've been doing WordPress development ever since.
Very nice. So it gets a lot colder in Omaha than it does in Orlando. Is that true?
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But at least you didn't get as much snow as we did this weekend in New York. So I guess there's a blessing there.
Yep. Yeah, we've been pretty lucky here in Omaha. Just some light dustings here and there. Nothing too crazy. Hopefully it stays that way. But we'll see.
And I do want to say we did not text each other in advance to coordinate our outfits, even though we're matching. That's quite by coincidence.
That's right. We're on the same wavelength.
Absolutely, for sure. So tell us about your product. I want to see it. Add it to the screen whenever you want to. I'm going to let you take the driver's seat right now.
Yeah, for sure. Let's before we dive into WP Rig, maybe it's best to kind of like explain how I even got here, right?
Sure.
Because I didn't invent this thing. This isn't mine.
Okay.
I inherited WP Rig from a person named Morton, who works at LinkedIn, and he used to be very, very involved in the WordPress community, and it was all about kind of like modern developer best practices and kind of learning what are the newest techniques out. And according to him, this is the backstory I got from him when I inherited this project, was he was kind of maybe slightly disappointed and surprised and saw room for opportunity when it came to what he saw most WordPress developers doing, and kind of like what their skill set was, and kind of like how much JavaScript they knew, how much, all the different languages, like how deeply entrenched they were into, I guess, software engineering. And so he saw some room for opportunity there, and he saw underscores and was like, okay, underscores is interesting. You don't have to build the theme from scratch. There's a starting point, but it's missing a lot. So he took it upon himself to start this thing called WP Rig. And then around 2019 is when I discovered it around 2020, I want to say. Maybe it was 2021, somewhere around there is when I found it. I came across it because I was working at a company called Proxybit at the time, which doesn't exist anymore. And so they had tasked me and my team with trying to figure out how best to build a custom theme that they could use across a bunch of different websites for auction companies. So they had this like little sub-service that they would offer people, auction companies specifically, to like help them like build their auction company website and integrate it with Proxybit essentially. And so they had a bunch of these sites that they were managing for different auction companies. And there wasn't like a very uniform way that they were built. They were all kind of like all over the place. And so the initiative was like, how can we already know we have to go through and like redo a bunch of these sites. So how can we make sure we redo them in a way that's like way more maintainable? And so the idea that came up was like, well, let's put them all kind of on the same like core theme. And then we can like change colors, branding, stuff like that on an individual basis so that they all kind of look slightly different. But under the hood, it would all be the same theme so that as we iterate on the theme or whatever, we could just deploy those changes to all of these auction companies, and then they would all be the same. And then let's make sure we build it like on a framework so that our developers can make sure that they're following all the best practices. Let's make sure we have some checks built in, like testing, and we're going to hook it all up to a CI/CD pipeline. So anytime somebody makes changes, we'll like check for certain things and stop the build if it like doesn't pass the sniff test, essentially, and all that. So they tasked us with like kind of going out and finding like what kind of frameworks there were out there to do this kind of thing. And so there are a handful of kind of theme development frameworks out there. And so everybody on our team kind of like picked one and went and researched them a bit. And so I had come across WP Rig, and I decided to spend a lot more time like diving in because it seemed very, very interesting to me over some other ones that I found out there. Mm-hmm. And so when we all came back, we all decided like actually WP Rig is like kind of the best one we found, essentially. Nice. So we decided to move forward with WP Rig. And then not long after that, for reasons completely unrelated to all of this, I ended up not working at Proxibid at all. It was like right after the pandemic. They had just got purchased by some other company. They had just went public. And so there's a lot of things changing at the company. And so me and a bunch of other people got let go. And so I never got to see that project all the way through. But coincidentally, about 2 to 3 weeks later, after all that, I had come across a post on WP Tavern talking about how WP Rig specifically was looking for like new maintainers. Essentially, they were looking for new people to like come in and adopt it and work on it, essentially. And so I joined this Zoom call that WP Tavern had kind of promoted or whatever, and asked a bunch of the right questions. And as a long story short, Morton reached out to me after the call and basically asked me to take this thing over all the way. I thought I was just going to be like kind of join the team or whatever, but it turns out like none of them wanted anything to do with it anymore. From what I understand, there were some like political reasons behind it. I think there was some kind of like, I think Morton himself had like a falling out with not just Matt Mullenweg, but I guess by extension, because of that, just WordPress in general. Like, I think he was just kind of like over WordPress, something to do with him and Matt. I didn't ask for all the details there. I just knew he told me there was something there, and I was like, okay, fine, whatever. I love WordPress, so I would love to take this thing over. Sure, whatever. So that's kind of how it fell into my lap. And when it first did, there was a handful of people that were interested in contributing, but nobody of those people were like developers, really. They were kind of just like, I don't know, I guess like regular WordPress users, like largely like marketing people or just kind of enthusiasts, I guess, like WordPress enthusiasts. And so, so there wasn't anybody really to help me like get my feet under me. And none of the original people that had started working on this were like still involved. They didn't want anything to do with it. Everybody was kind of like moving on to other things. And so here I am with this whole toolkit, and like, I'm not going to lie, a lot of it I didn't understand at all. Like, I didn't know. I'm just a WordPress developer, so I didn't know what the tools that Rig is built on are all Node tools. So it's all built on like Node.js. So there's a lot of stuff in there. Like there was a lot of stuff in there like Gulp and Browserify and Babel and all these things. And I've never coded anything that, I know how to do plugin development and theme development. But I didn't know how to do like automated tool chain development, which is kind of what WP Rig is under the hood.
So there was a little bit of a learning curve for you. Then you adopted this project.
Absolutely. And not just that learning curve, but also, I don't know if you remember what it was like back in 20 or 21, but like Gutenberg was just like kind of hatching out of the egg, and then full site editing shortly after that, and it was just like a lot of change happening all at once on top of that. So so I tried to maintain it as much as possible through version 2, and like little tiny contributions I can make that would improve it a little bit, I would make. But in all reality, like I had to kind of get my feet under me a little bit first and get my bearings before I could really kind of get like full on going with this thing essentially. And so here we are 5 years later, and we finally got there. Let's just put it that way. And so I've reworked a lot of WP Rig over the past 1.5 to 2 years. There's been some massive changes made to it that bring it once again into the modern times, because that was like the original pitch for it, was like, this is the modern way of doing it. And then 4 years later, it's not the modern way of doing it anymore. And so I had to like re-modernize it essentially. So that's been the task lately. And so that's kind of why I reached out. And that's why I've been reaching out to several people and just trying to get the word out about WP Rig, because finally, after a few years of discovery and then a couple of years of work, we've gotten WP Rig back to the point where I'm confident to say today that it is once again the most modern theme development framework out there for WordPress, and it's faster than ever, and it competes with all of the other theme development frameworks and tools that are out there. And so I think it is once again the best now, and there are also a bunch of cool tools built into this thing that help anybody that wants to develop themes for any reason.
Very good. So if anybody's interested in learning more, we're gonna see some behind the scenes, under the hood kind of stuff. But just go to wprig.io if you're interested in taking a look at it yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Let me see how sharing the screen works here, and I'll start kind of guiding people a little bit through what we're doing. And I'm just gonna do the whole screen. We're gonna whole screen it today.
Sounds good.
I'm gonna be jumping between some screens because we'll look at a little bit of code and we'll do some local development, and it'll be fun to see, so everybody can get an idea of kind of what this is like. So are you able to see my screen?
I do now. Yep.
Yeah, so this is, if you go to WPRig.io, this is what you're going to see. So I just wanted to give people a brief introduction to kind of what's going on here. So we got a full-on website with a bunch of documentation. We've got a whole showcase here. If you want to see websites that are built on a WP Rig-based theme, you can go to the showcase here. There is some like video, course type stuff here under the Learn tab. And then, of course, we do have a blog that I do maintain. Anytime we put out big releases, I'll put out a blog post. I'm not posting on here like every week or anything like that, like tips on how to like build themes or anything. It's a little bit too time consuming for me right now. Maybe if I can, set Claudebot up or something, I can get AI to start like pumping out content like that for me, but I just don't have time for it. But certainly anytime we put out a new release with a bunch of new features, you can go to the news tab and you can kind of read what's going on there. And I did just release a brand new version this last Sunday. So 2 or 3 days ago, I released a new version. It is 3.2. Anything with a 3 at the beginning is kind of like the new, like the modern 2026 version of WP Rig. So for anybody that's used WP Rig in the past, if you're on anything that's 2 point whatever, you're probably using something that's fairly dated. It's going to be much slower than what I demonstrate today. It's going to be on like a completely different stack of JavaScript tooling, which is kind of what's working under the hood to do a lot of the magic of WP Rig. But if you're on 3.0 or 3.1 or 3.2, you're going to get a much faster experience, especially starting at 3.1. So it was kind of there was a two-phase approach to the performance enhancements, and kind of like so we just swapped out the whole stack essentially. And so in 3.0, I swapped out half of it. And then in 3.1, I swapped out the other half. And so that whole process was basically just eliminating gulp from WP Rig, which is historically what it had largely relied on to do a lot of the task automation. And it turns out that was slowing things down like a lot. And so once I was able to remove gulp entirely, the speed enhancement was insane. It builds like 10 times faster now, which it wasn't particularly slow before, but it is insanely fast now. So then this 3.2 basically represents we addressed performance in 3.1 and 3.2 or 3.0 and 3.1. And then here in 3.2, the big goal with 3.2 was how can we ensure like confidence in developers when they're deploying the theme, essentially. What kind of tools can we bake into this thing to help test it for several things? Test it for performance, test it for accessibility, test it for like visual regression type testing stuff. So we now have Playwright baked into it. We now have Lighthouse CI is baked into it. There's a bunch of cool stuff in here. Those things are really, really new. So I am excited to get some people trying it and submitting issues on the GitHub repo if they find anything so that we can improve them as needed. PHP Stan is also in here too. So if you have older PHP code for anything that you want to like copy paste into WP Rig, say you're like rebuilding a theme and you want to rebuild it on WP Rig, and it's old code that's not object oriented, it's like PHP 7 and below or whatever, you can kind of copy paste that code into WP Rig and then run PHP Stan, and it will actually, it's not just PHP Stan, there's other PHP composer package tools that will help you modernize your code as you migrate it from like an older situation to WP Rig, which is really, really nice. Yeah. Oh, and then one thing I really wanted to make sure of here is that whether you're building a theme for sale, say you're themeforest.net or whatever, right? You want to build a theme and sell it, or maybe you sell it on your own website or whatever. You've always been able to use WP Rig for that situation, and it's been great for that. What WP Rig hasn't been particularly good for in the past was creating themes for like the WordPress.org theme repo. You could still do it with WP Rig, but like it just like it wasn't catered for that, right? And so what we did in this 3.2 was we wanted to ensure full preparation system for getting your theme published on the WordPress.org open theme repo. So what does that mean? That means that there are tools baked into WP Rig now that perform all of the same like quality checks that the WordPress.org theme review team uses to check theme submissions against. Those same checks are all built into WP Rig now, so that you can as a theme author, you can perform those checks yourself and like hopefully dramatically limit the possibility that your theme is going to get rejected because you've already kind of like self-assessed and kind of like rejected it yourself a few times, hopefully, like caught things that are in your theme and, oh, I got to fix this, I got to fix that because it's getting caught by this checker tool thing. And so if you've got a green light locally using all these tools in WP Rig, the chances are extremely high that it's not going to get rejected when you go to submit it to the theme reviewers at WordPress.org. So that was like another big initiative for 3.2 is, again, like really comprehensive tooling to self-assess your theme project as you move forward. So
Nice.
Yeah, with all that said, let's dive into kind of like what it's like to get started using WP Rig. And then I'll highlight some of the different ways it's been approved over the past year or two as we're going through it. And then I'll try to highlight some of the really cool features and tools I've included in here. So for anybody who wants to, like, let's say you want to test drive WP Rig, you're like, let me see what it's like to build a theme with this thing. It's really, really easy and very, very, very fast to do. So you can go to WP Rig.io, or you could just Google like WP Rig GitHub, whatever. But once you get to WP Rig.io, the link says download. You're not going to download anything. It's just going to send you to GitHub, essentially. So our GitHub page is kind of where everything starts. And we've got very extensive documentation on here in the README. It tells you kind of what some of the prerequisites are to using WP Rig as a developer locally. And there's a whole, this is kind of like a quick summary of like kind of all the tools that are built in here. For more verbose explanation, I would say you're better off going to the documentation pages on wprig.io. Those are way more detailed than what you're going to get here if you have specific questions about specific things in WP Rig. But yeah, so here's the big stuff. Like, in order to get up and running with WP Rig, you got to have Node installed, which installing Node will just install npm for you. So you'll be able to check this box here. We do encourage people to use Bun these days. Bun is kind of like the new hotness instead of Node, or instead of npm. And so anybody that's using npm, I would encourage you to install and try Bun. And if you do things with Bun in WP Rig, it will be much faster than if you do it with npm, but you can still use npm. So you have the option. You can do one or the other. And then Composer. And for those that aren't familiar with either of these things, basically npm is Node Package Manager. So any JavaScript based packages that which is essentially Node is a JavaScript runtime, you can get those from npm, and that does some of the stuff that's what some of what WP Rig does is kind of Node scripts. And then Composer is essentially the PHP version of npm. So it's all the PHP like tooling that's built into WP Rig. That all comes from Composer. And so you just have to have those two things installed. Node Package Manager, Composer, those two things manage all your packages for WP Rig. And that's really all WP Rig is under the hood. It's like 80% open source packages that are out there that you could just throw this stuff together yourself if you wanted to. And then there's like another 20% that's like custom scripts that are specific to WP Rig and help us build some of our tooling out. So you just got to make sure you have those things installed. And then whatever your local development flavor of choice is these days, like WordPress Studio is pretty cool. You could use that if you want. I know Kinsta has their own tool for local development. My favorite is still Local WP, not just because it was created here in Omaha, Nebraska by Flywheel, who was also from Omaha, Nebraska. But also, I just think it's the best. I like Local WP the best. It's my favorite. Do you have a local development tool, Michelle, that you like to use the best?
Sorry, I muted myself so my coughing wouldn't get in your way. Yeah, I use a WP Studio.
Okay, cool. Yeah, WordPress Studio. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. It's all based on WASM and WordPress Playground and all that. I've actually been diving into that a lot. You could use that as well. The only thing I will say, the only catch that I've noticed with WordPress Studio is that in order to use the WordPress CLI, you have to install the WordPress CLI like globally on your machine, as opposed to like environment specific installation, like a local installation, I guess, if you want to think of it like that. So that was the only catch that I caught with local WP. WP CLI is installed at the environment level instead of at your whole computer level. So that's just the only catch there. If you're using WordPress Studio, just make sure you install the WordPress CLI globally, and then you'll be able to use the WordPress CLI commands that come with WP Rig, because WP Rig does come with its own custom WP CLI commands that make theme development way easier. And I'll show some of those off here soon. So
I really like how you can share a cached version of the site out with other people. And so that's what I think is great, because I don't have to try to figure out a way to show it to other people when I'm in.
Oh, right. Instead of using the live link or whatever and having to be logged into WP Engine and all that stuff. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, there's a lot of cool things about WordPress Studio. It's very, very interesting. there's been some little nuanced things that just come that's got nothing to do with how Studio is developed, but they're like side effects of the fact that it's all built on PHP WASM, and so that side of things is somewhat limiting, but otherwise it's not a huge deal. Sorry if you can hear my dog barking.
It's okay.
I don't know why my dog is barking so much. I did close the
Because
door.
that's what they do.
In the afternoon, they get ornery because they know my daughter's going to come home from school soon, and like they start to they somehow they know what time it is without being able to read the numbers on the clock. I don't know how that's possible, but yeah, when they know people are going to start coming home soon, they get like kind of excited.
They have internal clocks, I'm sure.
Yep. So if anybody hears my dog barking in the background, I'm sorry.
No worries.
He's loud and rambunctious. So anyway, I did create a local environment here called post status. And I did that ahead of time so we wouldn't have to do that during the call. So we go here. I even added like a little bit of like kind of quick, I don't know. I just threw some block patterns in here. Honestly, like I didn't spend a lot of time like trying to do anything special. For the most part, this is basically like a default WordPress creation, with the exception of some of this content that's already in here. So yeah, if we back out, this is our admin area. We do have some plugins installed here already. I'll get to that in a minute. I kind of cheated, and like last night I like made sure everything was working correctly before we were going to do this essentially. So there is a command you can run that'll automatically install a bunch of plugins that WP Rig curates a list of theme development plugins, or plugins that we think are good to use while you're developing themes. And so I guess it's a good time to just show like these are all the themes, or these are all the plugins that we prescribe, I guess, for theme development that just make theme development easier. So we use like FakerPress for quickly throwing content into pages. We have an accessibility checker plugin in here that helps people check their theme for accessibility issues. Query Monitor, just to make sure that you don't have any weird stuff going on with your PHP or queries or anything. And the SEO framework, this is to make sure that all the markup that your theme is creating is all SEO friendly. And then Theme Check, this is the vital plugin that I was referring to earlier. So Theme Check is a cool plugin that they use, that the theme review team uses to check themes against. And so we have a WP CLI command that you can run that essentially takes a default WordPress installation and converts it into something that's more ideal for theme development. So part of that is installing all these plugins. And then the other part of it is doing the common stuff that most people have to do when they first create a WordPress instance, which is like create the home page, create the blog page, go into the settings, reading area, change these to those pages. Like if you just run this one CLI command, you don't have to do any of that. It does all of that for you, essentially. Yeah, so right now, if we go to appearance themes, you'll see we've only got like the basic themes that come with WordPress. So there's no WP Rig in here yet because we haven't done the process necessary to get WP Rig in here yet. And so that's what we're going to do now. So that process, again, is just go to the repo of WP Rig and just go to code. And, for anybody who's not used to Git or whatever, this is a standard for Git repos. If you want to use somebody else's repo that's just open source and out there for anybody to use, you just go to the code button here, and then you can just literally copy this. And I suggest just cloning it down. That's what. Now you can fork it. So if you know already that you want to use WP Rig to create some new project, like a more easy way to do this might be to like fork it first and then clone your fork. But I'm just going to clone WP Rig straight up here. And then I'm going to open PHP Storm, which is my editor of choice. I know a lot of people use Visual Studio Code. That would work well here as well. Let me close some of these other tabs in my I know you can't see the screen yet, but I don't want to confuse people, and B, let's just say there's some projects in here that I don't want people knowing about just yet. But you all will be hearing about them soon. So
no worries.
yeah, so here is here's my, this is that environment. So you can see up here, and I'm not going to go into presentation mode or anything. So for people that are watching on your phones, I'm sorry. You might want to like zoom in or play it on a bigger screen or watch it on your desktop or whatever. But yeah, like you can see we're in the post status directory in local sites, and then this is our themes directory right here. And so I'm just going to right click and go into open in terminal. And so yeah, we're going to be using our terminal to do all this. So now we're in the themes directory here. And that's exactly where you want to be when you're getting WP Rig up and going for the first time. You just want to make sure you're in your themes directory, and then we're just going to git clone, and we're going to paste in our URL from GitHub, and then that is automatically going to create a WP Rig folder in my themes directory. You can see it there now, and that's kind of step one. So step two is we got to go into that directory. So we'll just cd into WP Rig, and so now the terminal is in WP Rig. And we can run this. I'm going to use bun here just to illustrate how fast it does what it does. But anybody who's using npm, just know, again, if you're using npm, the commands are almost exactly the same. You can use npm. You don't have to use bun. But I would highly recommend people that are using npm today, if you haven't looked into bun yet, you should totally look into bun. It is basically like npm, but better. So yeah, anyway, bun, run, and then riginit bun is what I'm going to run here because I want bun to actually install our dependencies, not npm. But if you're using npm, you can just do this riginit one. So I'm going to run bun riginit bun. This riginit script is just a shortcut for doing npm install and composer install. So instead of having to do those two commands separately, it does them both at the same time, and it also runs you through like a little question and answer guide thing that makes it easier to get your local development environment configured with WP Rig. So WP Rig has a configure file that allows it to tie its tooling to your local environment. You'll see what I mean here in a second. So now you'll get to see how fast bun installs everything. That's it. That was like bun just installed all of our packages. It took like what, 2 or 3 seconds. That's how fast bun is. It's running an ES build real quick, and then now it's installing all the composer packages, which it's already done with that too. So now we just want to give it the URL for our local environment. So this is that Q&A part I was referring to. So basically all we want to do is we just want to take our URL for our local environment, which is this, not this. We'll get to, that's something else here, and I'll show you that in a second. But yeah, you just want, basically in the case of local WP, you just want whatever this is, right? So in the case of WordPress Studio, you would just, when you click open site and it shows your local environment in WordPress Studio, whatever that URL is up top, you just want to copy that URL and you want to paste it in here without the HTTP or HTTPS or whatever. So in this case, it copied that automatically. I'm just going to delete that out. We really only want the thing dot the other thing, or if you're using ports, it would be like localhost : whatever the port name, you would just put that here. So I'm just going to hit enter. I'm not using HTTPS in my testing right now, so I'm just going to click no. Whatever letter is capitalized on these, that's the default. So I'm just going to hit enter for no, and then I don't want a browser sync UI bypass port. So, well, I do, but I just want it to be 8181. So I'm just going to hit enter. And then of course, I want to enable live reload because that's one of the coolest parts about WP Rig. So I'm just going to hit enter here because the Y is capital. So yeah. So now it's done all of that setup for me. It went into the config. If you're curious what it did, if we go into config, it created this config.json file for us, and it automatically entered in all the values that we want here to get browser sync working, essentially. So it just makes the setup for browser, and it's not just browser sync. Now that we have Playwright installed, Playwright comes with WP Rig, and some of these other tools that come with WP Rig, they also leverage that some of this information. And so having that step in there is kind of vital. We just want WP Rig to be aware of our local environment, basically. So And then we have some next steps here. It tells you kind of look at the file that I'm showing you right now, review it, make sure it looks good. Make sure your certificate stuff is all set up. Here's how you start the local development server, which is npm run dev. There's other ways to start it though too. If you just want to build it one time so that you can see it right after you install it, npm run build will do it, and it won't keep the server, the watch server running. And then, yeah, for more information, you can go to this get started page. And then once you're done developing your theme, you just run npm run bundle, and I'll show you that in a little bit here. But yeah, basically we are ready to go with the exception of the build. And I'll kind of just show like what happens if you go in here and do it too early. You'll see what I'm talking about. So we can activate it, and then we can go look at what the front end looks like here. And you can see like it just looks like kind of wonky, right? It doesn't look the way we want it to. And that's because we haven't actually built, we haven't run either the first build or the watch server to build any of the local CSS or JavaScript. So for those that don't know what I mean by building the local CSS or JavaScript, basically one of the most important things that WP-Rig does for you is allows you to, so we have an assets directory here and we have a CSS directory, and CSS and JavaScript are extremely important to theme development. That's kind of like the biggest reason that you're doing theme coding, is that you want to add custom CSS or JavaScript to WordPress. And so what those do is they read through this set of files in here, and they compile it to min files. And so right now you can see that we don't have any .min in the root of either the CSS or JavaScript. We only see the folders here. But if I run npm run build, I'm just going to use bun run build, which you can use them interchangeably, and it's done. Now you can see that all these .min files are in here, and they're orange, which means that they're not version controlled. And so now that those are there, because that's what WP-Rig is looking for, WP-Rig only uses minified files. It only uses minified JavaScript files and minified CSS files. And the reason for that is performance. We want to make sure we're delivering the smallest, fastest files to the front end to ensure that users of the theme get the most performant experience possible. So now if I go over here and refresh the page, you'll see now this looks like what the plain Jane WP-Rig like vanilla starting point is. If you have your local, like if your computer settings are set to prefers light background, then this background would be white. If it's set to prefers dark background, so basically WP-Rig comes automatically with a light theme, dark theme detection system, because we're assuming modern themes built in 2026, that's going to be a feature that you want in your theme, is you're going to want your theme to be kind of dynamic and adjust itself to the user's preferences as they visit your site. Now you can easily disable this if you always want the background of your theme to be dark or light, but again, this is just how it comes right out of the gate. So that's why the background here is dark. And yeah, now we have what I refer to as a classic or hybrid theme, is kind of what WP-Rig is out of the box. And so for those that don't know what that is, basically that means that you still have the old school customizer in here, along with widgets and the menu manager. Like a lot of what you're seeing in here doesn't exist in, like if I switch back over to 2025, you'll notice that those options are not here, right? And it's because block-based themes don't, basically they've deprecated those features, because using blocks, using full site editing means you don't need those, because you do all that with blocks instead of doing it with these older mechanisms. I'm sure you already know this, Michelle, but I'm just explaining it for your viewers that maybe don't know. So by default, out of the box, WP-Rig is going to be a classic theme paradigm, essentially not block-based. But we do have commands that I wrote that come with WP-Rig that allow you to easily convert WP Rig into any of the other two paradigms. One of those being what I refer to as a universal theme. And I guess I'll just demonstrate that real quick. So if we go to our package.json, this shows you where, like, what all the scripts are that we can run in WP Rig, and there's a lot of them. So be ready for that. But yeah, the one that changes it to a universal theme is called editor support. And so basically what this means, it's exactly what it sounds like. If you want to use the site editor, then you just run this editor support command and it will just do it. And we're going to see how fast it does it here in a second. Bun, run, editor support. That's it. It's done. Like, it takes 0.25 seconds for it to make all the changes to the code base to turn it into that. So now if we refresh here, you'll notice that we do now have the editor capability, and we can go in and use the editor. And so this is what a universal theme is a universal theme means that not only can you use full site editing, but you still also have the menu manager and the customize situation and widgets. Like, it's kind of like a best of both worlds situation. There's several reasons why you would want to go this route. I'm not going to explain them all. I'll just leave them. I'll leave it up to everybody's creativity why you might want to make your theme a universal theme as opposed to a strictly block-based theme. So now with that said, you're like, okay, but what if I want it to be a block-based theme and not a universal theme, right? Sure, cool, no problem. We have another command down here that's just called block-based. So now we can say bun run block-based, and that's it. It's done. Now our theme is a block-based theme. And if we refresh here, whoops, is something broken? We may have just found a bug. I don't see the customizer, but I am surprised I see the menu manager and widgets. Maybe it worked, maybe it didn't. I promise that if we click here, yeah, we don't see the, maybe I'm cheating and maybe it's not 100% truly block-based yet. Possible. Anyway, for all intents and purposes, this is a block-based theme now. I now want to go back and review that and see if there's some way I can get it to review the widgets or get rid of the header and the menus and the widgets and just get it to be like, I guess, like 2025. But yeah, either way, it is totally block-based now. We still have the editor. You can do full site editing. I mean, this is a full site editing theme now. And if I refresh the page here, you're going to see it's changed. And that's because we're now using the built-in block patterns and templates. And so if we go in here and we start messing with the full site editor and we go to templates and we start changing, like, say, like the base template or whatever, like any changes here will reflect on the front end. And so now it's like, I guess that means you have to do less in your theme development in terms of like writing PHP, in terms of like the templates and stuff, but you still do have to write JavaScript and CSS and get that added into your theme. So basically, in my opinion, what this does is it gets, as a developer, you have to rely on PHP less, but there is a trade-off that I've noticed, which is now you have to do all of your like template development, if you want to think about it like that. You have to do it in the WordPress admin. You can't do it in your code editor. So I just want everybody to be aware. Like, I know block-based themes are like the new hotness, and everybody's, is your theme block-based? Is, all the new themes, everybody thinks the future of theming is block-based or whatever, right? And as somebody who uses AI a lot, I just want everybody to be aware that at least currently, as of today, I don't know what's going to happen with WordPress once 7.0 comes out or whatever, but as of today, if you want a automated, smooth, AI agent-driven theme development experience, block-based may not be the best approach. yet, because you still have to inject a bunch of, like, when we mess with the editor, we're changing stuff in the database. And so there's no way for AI to like reach into the database and automatically do a bunch of stuff. So we can't just have it automatically like build out page templates for us. Like, we can't have AI. AI can't build out page templates for us. Now, there was some interesting stuff that did recently just come out in version WordPress 6.9. The Abilities API does empower that workflow a little bit more. So it is great to see that Automatic is like kind of thinking ahead, and like I'm pretty sure they've already identified this kind of setback or kind of like, I guess, paradigm that's inconvenient. And so what is interesting is that there is an AI experiments plugin out there now that leverages that API, the Abilities API. And then there is also a GitHub repo out there that is called, I think it's called WordPress MCP or something like that. It's basically an MCP server for WordPress. And I believe, based on my research, that if you were to leverage those two things with the Abilities API, so you'd have to be on version 6.9 or higher, you might be able to actually bridge that gap and facilitate more of a AI agent theme development experience, where you can kind of just like let it run and have it auto inject content into the WordPress database to facilitate, automatically generating themes in here and so on and so forth. So I just want to make everybody aware of like some of my recent learnings there, and kind of like caveats and pitfalls why you'd want to do things one way versus another. But that's how you change WP rig between the different paradigms. And it is best to try and you kind of want to do this when you're starting your theme development project, kind of right at the beginning. You can run these commands at any time, but if you have a bunch of code, like if you've started coding for a classic paradigm and then you try to switch to block-based like halfway through, you're probably going to have to, refactor a bunch of code or something. And so that probably wouldn't be fun. And all your page templates, you'd have to like convert them to block patterns and change PHP to HTML and all this stuff. So I would recommend that people kind of make that choice at the beginning of the project and then stick with that paradigm throughout the development of your entire theme. So I said I was going to talk a little bit about the WordPress CLI. Because I'm using local WP, I can easily open the site shell for this environment specifically, which already has the WordPress CLI built into it. And so if I just type WP rig, I wonder, does it give me a list of all the commands? I think it does, yes. So it'll tell you, I know it's like showing some errors in here. Don't worry about those. That's just because I don't have the version of PHP I have is not properly configured. But you can see here, like it tells you kind of like what all the built-in WP CLI commands are. And the one that I recommend people using if they're first getting started with WP rig is just run this WP rig dev setup. And if you just do that right after, in a brand new installation of WordPress, like I said, it's going to do a bunch of cool things for you. It's going to change a bunch of settings of core WordPress to, assuming you're not building a blog specific WordPress site, assuming you're building like a regular website with WordPress, it's going to do all the things that you want it to do, like have a home page, have a blog page, set those accordingly. It's going to install some plugins that are ideal for theme development. And like, it doesn't take much time. Like you just run this, it does its stuff. And then like a couple seconds later, it's done. And so, that you're good there. What are some of the other ones in here? So this fake menu items one only works with classic themes, but what that does is it automatically generates a whole menu for you. So if you are developing a theme, but you don't have a bunch of content in your website and you want to focus like on the navigation and just make sure that you build out all the styling and JavaScript for the navigation correctly, you can run this fake menu items command and it'll automatically generate a menu for you in the menu manager with a whole bunch of fake menu items in it. And so that's pretty handy. Like, I don't remember if I've done it yet for this one. I have. So here you can look, it'll look something like this. Like it'll create a menu item 1, then 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, then 2, then da 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 da, then 3, then da 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 da. And so it'll like create like a whole menu for you. And then all you got to do is just set it to your primary menu and you're good. We're in a block-based system right now, so I would have to go change the navigation block and have it leverage this menu now. But it just called it dummy menu, whatever, puts a timestamp on there. And so it's just a nice, a developer easy situation thing to do. Some of the other ones in here are, we have a whole font class that manages all the fonts for your theme. The fonts download command will automatically reach out, assuming you're using Google Fonts, will reach out to your Google Fonts, pull them into your theme, and allow you to host the fonts right from your theme and automatically change all your code and change what it's pointing to point to the local version of those font files so that you don't have to reach out to Google to get those fonts. So that's nice. We have this import test data thing. I'm not going to get into that right now. That's for the, I will get into it right now. That's for the tests that are for getting your site optimized for the WordPress.org repo. They have like a whole set of, they recommend importing an XML file. And so this command will reach out, grab that XML file, import it all into your WordPress site, and then you can test your WordPress site against the same data that the theme reviewers would test your site against. So that's handy. Then we've got this menu export feature that just takes any menu you have built out locally and exports it to a XML file that you can then run the import command on a remote environment and import a menu. And then you can list all your menus. And then I don't remember what the test setup is right now. I think it has something to do with the import test data. I think these two go hand in hand. There's documentation about it on the website. They're really new, so I'm not super familiar with those. But that's all the WordPress CLI commands that come in WP Rig. And again, this is just to help facilitate theme development. They're not necessary to know. They're just handy, I guess.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, so far, I feel like I've been talking a lot. Do you have any questions about, like, I don't know how much theme development you've done, Michelle, but do you have any questions about?
Big old zero. I've never developed a theme.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, even though you haven't, do you have any questions, as somebody who hasn't done a lot of programming? Because I will say, like, I think one of the best things about WordPress is that it allows people that are interested in web design and development to kind of, at their own pace, like dip their toe into, into programming and coding as much or as little as they want. And so as somebody who came from a design background, like I used to be a graphic designer and then over time turned into a programmer, I found that WordPress made it much easier for me to do that. Yeah. And so I'm very grateful to WordPress for that. And so I would encourage anybody who's using WordPress, like, experiment every once in a while and try that.
To learn a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And you could do it with WP Rig. You could just go and code up a custom theme if you want and see how much you like it. Because especially with the block-based paradigm now, you can just kind of stick to CSS and JavaScript and not have to worry about as much of the PHP. And yeah.
Very cool. So I'm just going to put the website on the screen one more time, wprig.io. We only have a couple minutes left. I do want to ask you if you have any plans or intentions to monetize this at all going forward.
Yeah, so WP Rig itself, the core WP Rig, will forever and always be an open source development tool. So anybody who wants to develop WordPress themes, the assumption there is that you've done some amount of programming, you're going to be in some kind of code editor. Like that is going to always be free. And I'm going to continue to make updates to it over time. And so, yeah, for anybody who codes for WordPress, whether you're a plugin developer, a theme developer, or whatever, that thing's always going to be there for you to use. And it is very handy, as you just saw, and it's extremely fast. As far as other tools for people that want to build themes without doing as much code and perhaps prefer a more like user interface style approach to things, and some other cool features that I'm not quite prepared to talk about yet. There will be a product coming out in 2026 that is built on WP Rig, that will be a pro or paid product.
Cool.
So it's not going to, like, there's going to be no negative impacts to WP Rig as it is today. Anybody who uses WP Rig or what I just demonstrated today, there will be no impact on you at all. It will just be dramatic, modern enhancements to kind of what you saw. Just building themes, doing less code, a lot less code, building themes a lot faster, having built-in checks in. Just a lot, like deployment will be part of it. So if you want to deploy your theme somewhere, whether that be a remote environment or somewhere else on your computer, it will facilitate that. And I'm happy to say that product is already, like, alpha phase is kind of already there. So again,
Nice.
I'm not prepared to talk about it more than that.
But there's things coming. You have a roadmap.
Keep an eye on WP Rig, and I do think maybe it's just because it's mine, but it's very exciting, and I think the world is changing rapidly right now, and it will be tools like what I'm building or what I'm talking about. It will be tools like that really change the game. So maybe in another 6 or 9 or 12 months or something, you and I can reconvene and we can talk a little bit more about that.
Sure, absolutely.
But yeah, just keep an eye out for that, and just know that it is going to be built entirely with WP Rig. So not chances are, 100% I can guarantee money made from that product is going to cycle back and benefit back to the core WP Rig, the free version, the open source.
Very good. Well, I want to thank you for joining me today as we wrap up here. And again, if you have any interest in learning more and downloading and playing and experimenting, wprig.io. If you're a seasoned developer, you'll know what to do right away. And everybody else can refer back to this demonstration to learn a little bit more about how to get going. So thank you so much, Rob, for joining me today. And we'll see everybody else next week on Post Status Happiness Hour Live. And we'll see you then.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.